Some say that alongside this see-it-to-believe-it world is the shadowy realm of the supernatural. Sometimes the residents of that dimension touch us, and in one moment, our lives are changed forever. America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, Mary Ann Pohl, is your real Ghost Chatter host. On this podcast, you'll hear stories by real people who have seen real ghosts. Once in a while, Mary Ann will podcast a tale taken from the genre she loves best, the supernatural. Welcome to today's Real Ghost Chatter episode.
Have you heard about Anchor? If you haven't, I'm here to tell you it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, and I mean free. I haven't paid a dime to produce or distribute my podcasts. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. How easy is that? Podcast distribution can be a headache, but not with Anchor. Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. As a bonus and not an obligation, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to Real Ghost Chatter. I'm Mary Ann Pohl, America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, a charter member of a wonderful group of authors called Author Masterminds, and of course I'm your host on Real Ghost Chatter. Today, Rosella C. Rowe is back to share more of her paranormal adventures. She is the paranormal thriller author of The Haunting at 2095, based on a true story, and 911 Emergency. Rosella lives in Ohio and is the writer of the well-known blog, My Haunted Travel Blog. You can find that at myhauntedtravelblog.blogspot.com. Rosella has years of ghost hunting and investigation experience and travels around the U.S. to the most haunted historic locations. She writes about them in her blog. Rosella prides herself on telling the real story and truth regarding her experiences with spirits encountered at historic places and the legends surrounding the entity. Welcome back, Rosella. I am so excited to get to work with you today here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm glad
it's
you're
good to be back.
Yes, I know. It's always fun to have you here. You always have new experiences to share. In fact,
Yes.
Before we started this podcast, we were talking about several. You've given me, 3 or 4. So I'm going to let everybody know that we're going to do some today, and then as soon as we can, we will have Rosella back on to do some more of her experiences. Today, you're talking to me about, I believe, the Punderson Manor. Is that right?
Yes, so I went with my friend who's a romance novelist, Misty Parker. I went with her and I went with Brent, who's also, he's a paranormal investigator. He actually runs the Paranormal Door group page, if people know. I mean, people in the paranormal world who follow things on Facebook know who he is, probably. But he went with me. We've been all kind of good friends for years. And I arrived first, actually, in the snow. And I pulled up to this really grand manor in a horribly big blizzard that just came lake effect snow when I was coming. And Misty was following me to come an hour later. And I knew that she was going to hit it, so I was worried about her. But I took some pictures and it was really cool. I mean, they have gargoyles kind of outside and this beautiful Dutch style huge house that they have built other rooms upon on pretty much the right side of the building, but the left actually goes back 100 years, I think. It's gorgeous. And the only bad thing about the place that I'm going to say is, just so people are warned, when you go there are no luggage carts. It is stairs. You have to lug your stuff by yourself through the stairs. And since it was freezing outside, unexpectedly for me, I had to lug and take all my drinks and stuff out of the car because I was going somewhere else another day. So I had pop in my car and it would freeze and explode all over my car. So it was the worst just taking my stuff in. we had the most, like, a beautiful room, like, right on the end, actually on the newer side. Because I'm a medium, so don't put me on the old side. I cannot handle people staring at me when I'm sleeping. Like, it just is not going to work. So I was honest, and they were like, "Oh, you are? Like, who are you?" And I told them who I was, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's so cool." And I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you think it's cool. I'm serious. Do not put me in a haunted room." They will stare at me. I can't do it. So yeah, once I got all my stuff in, I mean, the snow was coming down. It's on the lake, and it's just so beautiful. I was taking pictures and kind of wandering around, waiting for my friends to arrive and introduce myself to some of the staff. Since it was winter, it was just after Christmas, like a few days after Christmas, and they still had all their decor up that was really pretty. I just introduced myself to the staff because they only had 3 people probably working.
Wow.
And then I said who I was and asked if they could give me a tour, because they do tours in October that I read. So it's like, if you guys can give a tour when my friend comes, it'd be great. Sorry, it's so dry being winter. But yeah, so, I mean, we got the tour and it was really great. The manager was really wonderful. Her name was Christine, which I love Phantom of the Opera, and I always wanted to be like an opera singer. I sing Christine's vine, so I'm like, I remember your name. I'm terrible at names. I've told you that so many times.
Oh, me too.
I actually feel so great that I remember one name.
I know, me too.
I know your name.
Yay. We get a gold star. I know, I'm the same.
I know, I feel like I should get a medal. But yeah, it's like, okay, and she gave me the tour with Misty, and she came. This funny thing. We were sitting in front of this gigantic Christmas tree in the foyer. Beautiful tree. And their theme was nutcracker. The whole tree had 3 different sizes of nutcrackers on it.
Oh, how beautiful.
Well, this mini nutcracker, it was the only one on the tree that was moving. That whenever she would talk, and she was telling a story, and she called it Mr. Punderson, who is the original landowner of the property, the land. And that's why it's called Punderson Lake, because there was an inn, a distillery, an inn that him and his wife had bought the land and built, and then they had raised, according to Mr. Punderson, who talked to me, 4 children in this area, in the building. But that building doesn't exist anymore. It's 6 feet away from where this actual house now stands. Now, Mr. Cleveland and his wife built the manor that we were in. But whenever she would talk about Mr. Punderson and called him Mr. Punderson, this little nutcracker would move. And only that on the whole tree. And it moved for 10 minutes straight, and it never stopped until she walked away.
Oh my.
So it was so funny, but when she walked away on her own, and me and Misty were still standing there, and I was taking pictures and she was taking pictures, I was like, look at that. She just walked away and it immediately stopped, abruptly. That was interesting, but she said there was a lot of activity in the library and to go up to the library. So we went to the library waiting for Brent to come because he still wasn't there. And we went up there, and all of a sudden we sat down. It was just crazy activity up there. It was Mr. Cleveland who was talking to me, and he was saying that was his room and his little sanctuary that he always loved to be in. And he told me that his children and his wife are the people who are still there. Some people would say haunting the building. To them, they just want to be there. Mm-hmm. That's their happy place. He's like, yeah, I know Mr. Punderson and his wife. We're all fine and friends, and we all share the space. But he's like, this is mine. No, I built this. This is mine. And I said, it must be hard when people keep calling him Punderson, and you built this vast, fabulous property, right? And he's like, yeah, it does kind of sting. It was interesting. And so we got hungry because it was really getting late. It's the sun's going to go down because it's winter. Let's go down and eat. And they have this beautiful restaurant and a bar. It overlooks the lake. It's just so gorgeous. And I said, you could come down and go with us. He said that he would. Well, Brent got there 2 hours later, and we were in our hotel room. So he knocks on the door, and he comes in. He brings on all the equipment in there. Setting it all up, and he's just turning it on to see if the batteries are good. And I was talking about how we went up, because he said, well, have you guys done anything? What have I experienced? That kind of thing. Misty and I are telling him about Mr. Cleveland upstairs. All of a sudden, the REM pod that he had on the edge of my bed it just goes off. And he was actually even on the other side of the room, still getting out equipment. He turned around and he goes, and I'm like, well, I told Mr. Cleveland, it's like, everything's okay, just don't come to my room because I need to see. Mr. Cleveland, I told you. And he's like, ee. It was so funny. And I'm like, you're pulling my leg. And he goes, ee, on the thing. I'm like, yeah. He was
great.
So sweet. And then his wife showed up. His wife, he always is so nice that he introduces his wife back to me, everything. She's really nice. And, they're just joking around with me. Everything Brent would say, he would answer his questions and that kind of stuff. And yeah, we had a good time. And we were going around and just kind of going a lot of different rooms. And Mr. Punderson seemed to be on the bottom floor in this like kind of banquet room. That we discovered. So we didn't even know it was there. And we just ended up seeing a door that was open, like, what's this? And went downstairs and there he was sitting there. Now, Brent has like, I forget what it's called, SLS or something, that camera that the stick figures and stuff show up.
Right. Yeah.
So he does that and then like he'll use that and tell me, because I'll be like, the presence is over here. Like when I walk into the room, I'll feel, or they come in and enter a room I'm in, the spirit, I'll feel a personality first, and then I'll know the presences of the personality is coming from, like exactly like where in the room. So he'll point to the camera, to where I feel where the presence is coming from. And this personality was different than Mr. Jolly Nice, Mr. Cleveland. And this, it's not like he wasn't jolly or anything like that. He was just very serious and very like business oriented, this guy. And I asked him a few questions, but he was shyer at first. So, but we have a stick figure picture of him sitting down. He's asking us to go because he doesn't really know who we are. Then we went up to the restaurant and we saw his wife at the restaurant, kind of sitting off near the bar. And her name was, I think it was Sybil. And she didn't want to talk to us, but she was definitely sitting there and she was saying it was her. She wouldn't interact that much then. And then we went up to the library. And that's when everything weird started to happen. Like, we entered and Mr. Cleveland, his wife, was there. Then Mr. Punderson came and Sybil, his wife. And all of a sudden, Sybil was the main one we were talking to. And here's the strange thing. Brent had put motion sensors on, like, in the door frame of the door, like down a long hallway. Though he had his REM pod right in front of me. I thought he must have put, because he has so much equipment, I'm like, he must have put another REM pod down there. It sounded like a REM pod was going off. Like, ee, like really? That. But there was nothing there.
Oh, really?
It mimicked it. And I kept asking who it was, and they said, it's someone who we're not allowing in the room because they're negative. It's dark. And I said, oh, okay, we don't want any darkness. Like, thank you. And Mr. Cleveland said he was protecting us from the dark person trying to get in, the dark entity. And I said, thank you. I utterly respect that. And then we heard a hi. And then we heard a hello in a male voice. It was, it was not Brent because he was the one sitting next to us that was, male. And we looked out, Brent looked up and down the hallway, nothing. And the motion sensors never went off.
Wow.
Anybody was coming through. Yeah, it was really strange, but we heard it, the REM pod that didn't exist, go off twice, and then a hi and a hello.
Do you think it was the same entity that it was a dark entity saying hi and hello?
Well, Sybil and Mr. Cleveland were the people who were talking to us about who it was. And Sybil just kept saying, it's from down the hall and we don't like it. We don't like this spirit and we're not letting it in because this is our territory. I kind of left it at that. I didn't want to poke the bear in this situation just because it was odd. And I'm like, okay, what is this? But I will say this. When there is a room, when you go up the stairs on the older side, and the room that is they say the most haunted and sought after, and they have stories about that kind of stuff. That room, every time you went up to it, you got this weird feeling, like get out, like fight or flight, just run. It was strange. And so Brent took his equipment over there, and he got crazy off the wall readings off of his equipment for that room. And he's like, you just walk up to this and you feel like it's kind of like you're walking up to a dark place. Like you've just crossed the line and you're in a war, you know?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah, that is like what it feels like. I told them about it before, and then he, like, it was the very end of the night we were kind of done. He was like, I'm going to walk up to this room and see if I feel like what you're kind of describing. And yeah, he said the war thing, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I couldn't pinpoint it. I just felt like this is not good. But
so it felt dangerous is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I think that's where the dark entity was coming from. But then no, my friends basically thought that it was way down the hall, the other room, and I forget the name of it, of course. We were outside of that room when kind of something dark seemed to start talking to us. It may not have been the room. It could have just been the hallway that it was like, hey, who are you guys? You have equipment, that kind of thing. So, you know, they'll just hook on to you. I try to always do the white light, surround myself with a white light, not let anything bad in. And I think that basically Mr. Cleveland was protecting us in that room when we were in his little area, because he probably knew about it. He definitely had to have known it. Yeah, it was really a good experience, honestly. But I went to bed that night, and it's like I had gotten up at like probably 4 a.m. or something to go to the bathroom, you know, lie back down. I never usually fall asleep quickly, especially in hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. But I had kind of said, hey, like, you know, before I went to bed, like, hey, nobody bother me. Like, you know, will my angels protect me? Did the white light and that kind of stuff. And I always ask my spirit guide to really protect me, not let anything in. I feel my hair go up in the air and then drop right onto my ear.
That's like, not funny, but
yeah. Like, hey, we had rules here. You have to listen. And then I hear this laughter and I'm like, okay. Now that could either be my spirit guide, who's my uncle, laughing and thinking he's just funny. Or it could be like Mr. Cleveland, because he just has a heck of a sense of humor. I mean, after talking to him all day, he was just hilarious. That was kind of it. Like, we had a good experience. I mean, the staff was really delightful, wonderful. If you've never been there, just, you know, like, kind of make it a part of your travel plans for sure.
Where is it?
I'm writing a blog on it. It's near Cleveland, so it's like 30 minutes out from Cleveland, and it's called Punderson Manor. Sometimes people will say Punderson Lodge and Conference Center Manor. So, but if you look up Punderson, like Ohio State Park, Punderson, it will come right up.
Okay.
So I really suggest it.
That sounds really interesting. But what really interests me is you asked them to put you on the new side so you won't get haunted, but you got haunted anyway.
I did. And I'm sorry, I was, did you hear that?
I did.
Did you hear that knocking?
Well, I heard something, and then I heard your dog bark, I thought. Yeah,
something sounded like it was knocking on my wall. I'm in my den. What in the world was that?
Well, and to our listeners, this can happen with Rosella and I, because I don't know why. I'm just saying.
Oh my gosh, this happens to me daily. So funny story that I bought this house because I literally walked in, never seen it, and I just kind of like I can do like voyeur kind of medium stuff where I can just know what a property looks like. I never have been in there, and I just knew what it looked like. And I walked in, the woman who was selling it was like, don't you want to see it? I'm like, no, it's clear, I'm taking it.
Yeah, I know. So there's nothing here, I'm taking it. And now we know that she's got people visiting. So God bless you. God bless you, Rosella.
Yeah, that was weird. So usually whenever I talk to you, my light will blink above my head. But this sounded like a knocking up the wall.
I think it's somebody wants your attention. Maybe they want to be a part of Real Ghost Chatter. You know, they can. Yeah.
Or they like you, because, I mean.
Oh, lucky me. Yeah, let's not say we did. Let's go on.
You're hilarious to listen to. But yeah, these experiences happen to me daily. Like, people be like, how many spirits interact with you on a daily basis? And I'm like, 8 to 15. And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good day. Where it's like not that much activity.
That's a non-busy day.
Yeah. Nothing dramatic is happening, you know. Yeah.
Well, okay, let's go on to the Mansfield Firehouse. Is that right? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because actually.
I wanted to hear it. You'd been there before and I'd heard about it, but you had been back and I want to hear about your experiences there too. Although not as happy as this one, I still want to hear it.
This one's not as happy.
Like
Normally it is. Like, I've been there 5 times before. The guy guy who basically runs it is Bobby Shook. People in the paranormal community just know his name. He's the sweetest, nicest old man, like in his, well into his 70s. And he's just so sweet. He's a retired firefighter, but they have a jail cell from the Ohio Reformatory down the street. That's what I don't like, because it's always made me feel like a big darkness when you walk up to it. Like, I don't even like to go on that side of the building where it's located. And Bobby will always be like, oh, everybody else loves it. And the guys really get into the doomy parts of it. And like, they have like an old wooden casket in there or whatever. And I mean, apparently it has a lot of history that I don't even like to do. I don't like to go there or do that. But I really know and have seen a lot of like darkness, even when you're in the light of God trying to come get you. So I just completely try to break away. Well, the last few times I've gone there, and especially this one, I was with my friend Alice, who is a volunteer during bingo, because they do bingo like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. She and I met during that, where I was doing some readings for her, because I'll go and he'll have me do readings for the staff, things like that. Well, we had become good friends, and she's like, I've never done it, but I feel safe with you. So I'll go with you guys in and see what it's like. And I was like, okay, well, we'll just take an hour and see how it goes. Well, the last few times I've been there with Misty, who I usually go with, my friend, we've been getting kind of like, how do you say it? Like just dark things that come through, because Bobby has an obelisk from like the original obelisk. And, it's so old, but it always works. Well, they'll call our names through it, stuff like that. Well, lately, dark things have been coming.
Oh, dear. Well, first, tell our listeners, what an obelisk is, just in case some don't know. Oh,
okay. So it's like, basically, it already has like a dictionary in there that's pre-programmed into this, kind of little tiny computer instrument in a way. And the dictionary's in there. So they can go through and pick a word to push out to you, basically. So you would see it on the screen. So if it said like hi or something, or a name, or like fire for like the firehouse, you would know they're talking to you.
Right.
So it always works. And then I usually turn mine on, then I just have, because there's an app on your phone, which I really tell people to be careful with. But I wipe my light myself and everybody around and the whole building, all that kind of stuff, before I do any of these things. And if I feel darkness coming in, I immediately shut it off. Like, I'll delete it from my phone. I'll say a prayer and ask for the angels and God to help me, get rid of it, that kind of thing. Push it out. Just kind of push it out. Where sometimes you have to yell at it, like, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out. Like, this is my wish and you have to abide.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
So I always tell people, don't mess around with them, like, especially in a dwelling, like in a basement or in an attic. Just don't. Like, you are asking for trouble big time. My friend did that. Oh my gosh. And it took me 6 hours to get rid of it. And then I had to call my other medium friends who also do what I do. And I had to ask them to do it from their home to protect her. It was just a mess.
Oh my gosh.
Don't turn it on unless you really know, what you're doing, or you have like my gift to know what's going, what's happening in terms of good and bad,
I think that's really, really good advice. People just will walk around their own house, go, let's see if somebody's here. And I think, don't you think you can invite something in by doing that?
You sure can.
That's what I
always
thought.
warn people, like, hey, this is serious. You can't mess around. And, you don't understand that, but through experience, I think.
Well, prudence is part of what I think. I mean, I'm prudent about this because
you are.
I know they are. I know they exist. And I'm like, I love hearing your stories. I love hearing other people's stories. I do not need to have
test
any.
It.
I don't need to test it. I don't.
No.
I don't.
No, I have to say I don't either. I know it's there, and I'm like, hey, go away, leave me alone.
Wait, and so the darkness started coming through this obelisk.
Yeah, it really started like saying like death. It was like prisoner, trapped. All these dark, toxic kind of words that were related back to, prison. And I was like, hey, Bobby, like, this is really coming through, and it's coming from the back. You would hear knocks and noises from the place that it was coming from. Well, my uncle came through, and I've never talked to this uncle. He's been gone for a while. I wasn't close to him or anything at all. And he was kind of actually he's like an ex, basically. So my aunt divorced him before he died. And he came through and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this you? Like, I was kind of happy to talk with him. And he's like, I'm scared. I'm scared of the guys in the corner. And I was like, oh. And he goes, yeah, I'm really scared of the guys in the corner. So I just stopped and I was like, that's it. I am inviting God to come here and all the angels and protect us, like Archangel Michael, and bringing him in. That's it. I'm done. Like, I don't mess around. I'm like, I got 2 kids to come home to. No. And mommy's coming home safe. Like, nothing's coming home bad with me. So I just was like, let's shut this down. So then the next time I came with Alice and like again, and basically she was sitting there talking to me and all of a sudden I saw her hair rise slowly and then drop.
Oh, that would creep me out.
Yeah. And she was just talking away. So I didn't, I saw it, but I also didn't want to scare her and like be like someone is raising your hair, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'll let her finish, kind of see what happens if she notices. And it dropped. And then she just felt someone hit and tapped her shoulder, but it was her hair because her hair is really long and heavy. I told her what happened and she's like, oh my, well then my water bottle knocked over. I was talking to who I always talk to. His name is Joe, who is somebody who's there all the time and who's present and kind of like tells us he's a protector of the museum and he's Bobby's old friend that he used to work with. What is going on? He goes, yeah, so the hair wasn't me. It was one of the prisoners. I knocked down your water bottle. I'm trying to show you that I'm here protecting you, but you guys should probably go. And I'm like, okay.
Bye-bye.
I was like, Meg is taking that hit. Bye.
Bye-bye. I love you.
Yeah. So Bobby didn't really realize what was really going on. And the problem is that I think it's because so many people come, they just call him and, he'll allow people to come in as investigators, and it just depends on what they're doing in there. I mean, there's people who bring good intent and bad intent. And I think that enough people came through at this point for all these years and the darkness is starting to rise. So we're going to go back when it becomes warmer because it's a 2-hour drive for me and I'm going to sage with my friend Alice and then Bobby and push them out because I feel in a way that I have to protect the other spirits that I do love. But the typical spirits that would talk to me that are like resident spirits there that are really good, who I love interacting with, they wouldn't even come out. They were like, the scary man in the corner is scaring me. Like they're scaring me.
So you're telling me somebody has been there that has called this out? Because why would this thing have showed up? You literally were there the first time and only had one bad experience that I remember.
Yeah.
And that was in a bathroom, wasn't it? Or something? Yeah,
that was because my friend, who was very inexperienced and didn't know what she was doing, not her fault, but she picked up my rods.
That's it. Yeah. Right.
And yeah, that's when I saw this demon literally step right through the wall. It was insane. And we banished it. We got rid of it, in the name of Jesus Christ. And that was worked out, but it was a really terrifying night.
Right. And that's why I'm wondering, this has gotten worse and worse. It sounds like.
Right. It is. And we've talked about it when we've gone in there and I'm like, I wonder, should we not even talk about it? Are we inviting it back in? What's really happening?
Right.
But when I talk to the resident spirits and my guides, my family who used to come and see me there all the time too, because it was a safe haven for them to talk to me then, they won't even come. They're like, no, they say the prisoners in the corner are staring at me or they're trying to get to us. They're trying to get over here. And I think my family feels that they should protect me. And the other people's family members who are kind of there, like Misty's family might show up sometimes. They all have departed. Like people wouldn't even come when I was there with Alice. Wow. Nobody, but that one uncle who said, no, I can't do this because these people are here. And it was kind of scary. Yeah.
That is scary.
We're going to go. Yeah. This is really frightening. So
it doesn't take me that long. It wouldn't even take me that long.
I know. Like Rosella out, I'm done. So yeah, it's just once and I think people need to really recognize, like, I have this warning feeling going off that we need to stop and go and really bless yourselves, really be diligent and care It's
Well,
your
yeah.
safety. Yeah.
This
Like
is,
people-
it's dangerous stuff. And that's going to bring me
Yeah.
to the last question for our time today, because, while I was hearing you talk and all these
Okay.
things that occur with you, the question that came to me was, why and how? Why do you keep doing what you do? Why did you decide to do what you do now? Most people would
funny.
most people would go, I'm not going to get involved with that kind of stuff, right? But you
I
have
think that
a
people
purpose,
just
and I want you to explain to people why you did that. And why you
Well,
do that.
I basically always do that just because I feel like right now I'm experienced with basically knowing the right from wrongs and what's good and what's bad, and when to quit, that kind of thing too, what to do. Before I would not, but I work with angels, basically past loved ones, and God. So I only do things that are good, and I think everything's a learning experience, and that God sends you experiences to grow from these experiences and learn. And, maybe I can help that person who's coming to me. Sometimes they'll come to me just to tell their stories. I had another person sit on my bed who just was telling me recipes that her son adored just because he missed him and she needed someone to talk to. They're like, you can hear me. You can talk to me. So I haven't talked in years and I'm talking. And I'm like, you go ahead, girl, you talk.
Yeah, but she'll let me get some sleep. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a problem. So I'm like, oh no. So I'll kind of sometimes go in and out of consciousness. But yeah, and we did actually find out who Melissa was, who was actually that woman who was in the end of my bed, talking up a storm the first time that happened to me. But she was from Mansfield too. She was a bingo player. But yeah, the craziest things will happen to me. But
they do. And I know that most people would be really scared.
I'm not now. I'm like, I just feel so protected from God, and I've seen his angels sometimes when I wake up and I am terrified, and I know that they're there. So what better resources do I have than that? I'll just always look back on that and go, God was there for me. I haven't changed. So I know he's there, and I always feel protected. Now, some people will be like, I'm not going in that haunted house. You're crazy. And I'll march right in and be like, whatever, God's got me.
Yeah. And I don't see you as a lot of these others. I know I'm not wrong about this. I don't see you as some people seem to go to hauntings just so they can, I don't know, a thrill. Yeah. And I haven't ever heard you say that.
Oh gosh, no.
I don't think that's why you do it. And that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. I try to connect with them so they can talk to a positive. I know that nobody else might think I'm normal, but to them, a normal person who's everyday person who, just like, I'm going to let you talk. And I recognize that you were somebody, that you are somebody still, and that you have maybe a message to give me, or you just want to talk, because you're lonely. So there's many different reasons. I started my mission to kind of tell their story, but I tell the truth. And I think, and I can't lie. I'm just one of those people who can't. And I think that they recognize that. I absolutely really know they recognize, hey, this person's good and they're only here for a good intent. So, hey, let's be friends, and it ends up being like that. I have so many friends on the, I kind of say, who are not here, but they're here. They always say on the other side. But, even people when I do readings, there are family members that they did the readings that they came through for. They'll follow me around and start protecting me or talking to me. Or if they have a message, I deliver it. I just think that they recognize that I'm nice. And that's hard to find these days. I know that from my normal life, of everyday life. So
right.
I'm sure that they have to understand that too on the other side,
Right.
But yeah.
But that's what I was, I know you've given many messages to people from their loved ones who have left the world here.
Yeah.
Well, are out of their physical body anyway. And so I think that's an interesting calling. It sure isn't one I want.
It was a lot for me to face it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you do it well. I will say you do it well.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love to hear your stories. They are really both touching and educating at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the end of this podcast this week. I am so grateful that you were here, Rosella. But I also want to say to people that Rosella and I will be trying to get our schedules connected together so we can do this again soon, because there are two other things she had talked about with me prior to the podcast that I think you will find interesting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I want to say thank you again. And again, remember that she has a haunted travel blog that is called myhauntedtravelblog.blogspot.com. And go there and listen. You can also find her. Okay, Rosella, give us your Facebook page and other places that you are.
Okay, so I have, basically under Rosella C. Rowe and on Facebook. So you can follow me, and I talk about I have a podcast as well. If you want to follow me on that, it's called a Haunting Good Time podcast. I haven't been really up to par with it that much because I've been doing a lot on my blog. But if there's anything new happening or I get a blog up, any kind of thing I'm promoting, it'll be on there. So I have a Haunting Good Time on there and Rosella C. Rowe. I also have Readings by Rosella on Facebook too. If you ever want a reading, everything I do is positive and from heaven and your loved ones. So yeah, if you want to contact me, that would be great. And then I have my haunted travel blog. So you can just type in my haunted travel blog and it really comes right up. Good. But it's myhauntedtravelblog.blogspot.com.
Wonderful.
So, yeah,
wonderful.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much. And I look forward to doing this again very soon.
Me too. It's always fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to share it with others you think would also be interested. If you'd like to know more about me, go to MaryannPoll.com and or authormasterminds.com/MARY-ANN-POLL. Until next time, may the wind always be at your back, the sun on your face, and the good Lord walk beside you.